This dude right here, he's pretty lean, and that's by design so that you can see all the different muscle groups. All right, so here's your rear delt, ORD, trap, rhomboids. Shit, it's the same. No, that's a D. Rhomboids, RB. I was gonna say that looked like a B to me, but it's a fucking D. So rear delts, rhomboids, lats, tris, and elbow, EB, forearms for FA, and then spinal erectors. SE. So the most obvious points of reference that people talk about when they reference recovery and injury prevention are the muscles that you think about using in your squats, your benches, your deadlifts. So your upper back, you pretty much never have to worry about that being overtrained. You can honestly beat the shit out of your upper back with an infinity volume, and it's just going to always benefit from it. Same with the traps. These two right here are most resistant to training volume. You're not ever going to have to worry about doing anything preventative for them. I don't like using the term rehab, prehab so much anymore, just because it's kind of associated with hokey pokey ass YouTube coaches. But for lack of a better term, movement prep. Something that you want to do to address some of these other muscle groups that don't get a lot of attention. So near your rear delt, right here, attaching into your shoulder joint, is a muscle called your infraspinatus. I don't know how the fuck you spell it. Essentially, that's the galaxy brain term for referring to a muscle part of your rotator cuff complex. So your infra. Okay, that's as close as we're gonna get with the spelling, because I don't know how to spell that shit offhand. Like I said, guys, that spell check be saving my ass when I be typing shit out for y'all, because I don't know how to spell a lot of different things. Offhand, like I'm not an idiot, but like this bullshit, this nerd shit, I don't know how to spell it. But anyway, your infraspinatus. This gets taxed and used a lot when you do things like squats, okay? So when you do a squat, you have to externally rotate your elbows and your shoulder to get that bar tight, right? What are you doing on bench press? You also externally rotate to an extent on the eccentric. When you do an overhead press, you're externally rotated. When you do a pull-up, you're externally rotated. Front squats, and this is where we're going to talk about today, because this is why I'm having to do some movement prep. When you do front squats, you super have to externally rotate. All of that taxes this fucking muscle right here, the infraspinatus. It's part of your rotator cuff complex. Your infraspinatus muscle, if you don't otherwise train it, you know those fucking little sushis, the little rice shits with the little sliver of fish on top of it? That's about how big your infraspinatus muscle is. So, add a little sushi right here. These are the sear marks. And then that's your infraspinatus muscle. Now, that little tiny muscle is very resistant to volume. However, when it's had enough, it's had enough. And that's when you run into a lot of problems when the boomers say, oh, I can't bench press anymore, blah, blah, blah. When I was doing front squats, trying to get the 225 for 20, it was always my upper back, my rhomboids, and this shit here that was limiting me from being able to express the strength of my legs. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. It was never the strength of my legs that was stopping me from doing things. I was trying to get the 225 for 21 as part of my challenge to Eric Bugenhagen. I ended up giving that up for now anyway, because, and I'm guilty of this too, so this is why it's a teaching experience. I didn't do a whole lot of movement prep for my infraspinatus, for my rotator cuff. It's right here, situated, you know, right at the top of your lat and by your rear delt, attaching into your shoulder joint. I wasn't doing a whole lot of movement prep for that, so when I was, and I've, you know, scantily ever done a front squat before, you know what I'm saying? So, granted, my mobility is good. Like, I can externally rotate pretty good. It's just biasing it that far with that much exertion and pushing my body past its capacity to do a movement safely by with no pain or anything like that. But it's kind of like if your tissues aren't resistant to volume, it doesn't matter how strong they are. If you do too much volume, they're going to be sore. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like that, but to an extreme. And with your rotator cuff, you have to pay attention to that kind of recovery. So there's a few things that you want to do to be proactive about that. So, mind you, I've been training for a very long time. So my tissue is more injury resistant in general compared to probably a lot of you that are watching this video. But there's a few things that you can do to prevent any sort of fugazi shit from going on with your rotator cuff. So first and foremost, ER strength training. So we'll put ER training. That can break down into a few different things, and I'm doing all of these things. All right, so number one is the most obvious one, band face pulls. All right, that's the most obvious one, and I do want you to do that sheerly for getting blood pumping into that complex back there. That's like the lowest tiered movement that you're going to use as movement prep for this. The reason being is that you can't progressively overload a fucking band. I mean, you can get tougher bands, but the purpose of you using a band is to do a ton of reps, get blood pumping into that infraspinatus muscle and all those rotator cuff muscles, and to just get it feeling good if you're a little achy. So that's our tier 3 movement. That's at the top. So we're going from the top down. The second of which is going to obviously be things like rows. Many of you might already be doing that, but there's a way that you want to do rows. It's to bias activation of your rear delt into your upper back. That by proxy, since the infraspinatus is located within proximity to those muscles, is going to work that muscle. I think a lot of people, when I posted my physique update, a big thing that they said is that, like your rear delts are really big. That's by design, one, because I just kind of wanted them bigger from a visual aspect, but in terms of injury prevention, that was from doing a whole lot of rows. There's a way that you want to do that though, and you got to look at the way that your muscle fibers attach and the angles at which they attach. So I'm not going to draw a diagram again. Well, fuck it. Okay, I will. I'll just do it in a different color. I'm going to draw the back again. All right, so here's your spine. Here's your spinal erectors. Here's your lat. Here's your upper back and your traps. And here is your rear delt. If you want to develop the lats with any sort of row or pull down, so this is a golden tidbit for you guys. This will address something that's fucking stupid that people, when I hear this, I know they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And these people fucking will sit here and go gung-ho in the comments, oh, blah, blah, I've been training for 5 years, blah, 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 shut the fuck up. Fucking weirdo. A lot of people don't know this, and I don't know what it's from because it's obvious to me, but when you do rows and pull downs, if you keep your elbows internally rotated towards your rib cage, so close like this, that'll activate a lot of lat. So I'm going to show you right here. Even with just body weight, like no resistance, my hand, my arm. You see, I'm pulling into my lat. What you want to do is these fibers in your rear delt and your upper back are situated out as opposed to down, like with the lats. So as opposed to you pulling down, you're going to be pulling more at a 45 or higher. Those kinds of rows are your number 2. So we've got band, that's tier 3, externally rotated rows, and the tier 1, number 1, is you can do this on a cable machine, or you can do this with dumbbells lying on a floor if you don't have access to a cable machine at your gym, or you're at home gym or whatever and just have plates. It's going to be, so I'm going to do a slash, so it's going to be cable, ER, shit, fucking dyslexic, ER slash floor ER. So what I mean by that is, you get you a cable station set up, right? You're going to have it so that the cable is going out this way and the handle's like this, and you're going to, well no, the cable is this way because you want the point of resistance to come from over here so that you can pull away from it, right? So here's the handle. You're going to start like this, so it's going to be flush to your belly, and then you're going to rotate out, hold it. That's a rep. That's a rep. That's something that you're going to be wanting to train in a hypertrophy standpoint. So you're going to want to progressively overload it over time. Start with like 3 sets of 10 every upper body workout or every lower body workout, or however it is. 3 to 4 times a week, 3 sets of 10. Progressively overload that over time by adding sets first and then weight. It's not something you want to do too many reps with at first, because like I said, it's a muscle that you're looking to not overtrain. You see what I'm saying? That's the whole reason why people get problems in their infraspinatus, because it gets overworked. If you ever start to get pain back here in your infraspinatus, you want to start being proactive about it. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things that may cause it, other than general overuse. Now, something for me that I've noticed with my training is that it's been very, 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 very bench specific in terms of, that's the upper body press that I train primarily. You don't want to neglect your overhead pressing work. It does not have to be in any strength training parameter. You don't necessarily have to be focusing on progress for that specifically, but it's a movement pattern that you do want to work with load, even if you're quote unquote maintaining. You don't want to maintain anything, but if you put it on the back burner as like a third tier, okay, when I get my bench, my pull up, my deadlift, and my squat up, okay, after all those 4 things, then I'll start to progressively overload my overhead pressing movements as well. You still want to make sure that you're doing it though. A big reason for that is that just like with everything else, there's movement pattern specificity. You can use your chest to press down. You can use it to press at this angle, every angle up until when you're using an overhead one. So it's over your head. And then you're no longer recruiting your chest muscles. Same way as that is that you can recruit your lower back, your legs, everything else, but also those ER muscles in your rotator cuff. You externally rotate on bench, but it's different in the way that you externally rotate on a row or on a fucking deadlift even, or overhead press. If you don't have strength in this particular capacity, overhead strength, that's going to also be to your detriment, because that's not, you don't want to be weak in any movement pattern. And if you neglect it like I have been, I noticed that in that overhead pressing pattern, I can't push my shoulders as much as I would want to because of that discomfort in that particular movement pattern. Now, if you're someone that's already kind of in that boat like me, what you want to do is start implementing what you can. So find a weight range and a weight capacity that you can train with perfect form. So we're talking 3-second pauses, tempo, on up and down, and that's without pain slash discomfort. Now we're talking, I neglected my overhead pressing strength so much to the point where I went from my best overhead press is 225, which isn't great considering my bench pressing strength, but it's deteriorated to the point where now I'm having a little bit of infraspinatus pain that was, aggravated by the front squats, but it didn't help that I also wasn't doing any overhead work. Find a range that works for you. Look at it less as a strength training parameter, as in I'm doing this specifically to get stronger, and again, as movement prep. Movement prep plus capacity. It should be so light compared to your bench pressing work that it doesn't even register as any sort of fatigue in your program. So for me personally, I did my full bench pressing workout, which included 3 sets of my Omni press, which is a t-shirt touch Larson press, t-shirt touch pause Larson press. I did my hammer strength press. I did all my other accessories. And then after that, I did 4 sets of overhead press, which for me, this is extremely light, but 105 pounds, 115 pounds, and then 125 pounds with a really slow eccentric, a really slow concentric, and then a 3-second pause to, like I said, build capacity. When I started doing this a few weeks ago, I don't know if I mentioned it on Instagram at the time that I started doing this, when I told them I was going to beta test overhead pressing on my program, but when I started doing it, it was with the bar, then with 65 pounds, then blah, 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 so on and so forth. It has got progressively better since I started doing that. When you have a tweak like that, that's not anything that you necessarily want to over-rest. And what do I mean by that? You rest, obviously, to the extent that you can recover and do it again, but by complete rest, I mean like you're just sitting on your ass not doing anything. That's going to make you more injury prone. It'll hurt worse and worse, versus you strengthening these muscles. You're allowing them to recover, you're giving them the adequate recovery, you're eating, you're sleeping, but you're also working them so they can build up and come back better so that they don't break again or tweak again or start hurting again.